YouTube, another edition. Thank you to everybody for listening to the first episode. More viewers than even exceeded my expectations. I don't know if you've taken a look yet, Mike, but I was just looking at the numbers like right before we started, and I was like,
"What we're talking about first." All right, yeah, I'm ready to go.
All right, let's set up. There we go. In 5, 4, 3. Wait, hold on here. Hold on. Wait,
Something was playing.
Something was played that shouldn't have been played. There we go. To another edition. Thank you to everybody for listening to the first episode. More I apologize for that, and
you're good.
Because we are live, and I'll just roll with it. And Steve Milhausen, Mike Finch, glad to be back here, Mike. Thank you for everyone that listened to the first episode. Exceeded my expectations. I looked at the numbers really quickly on YouTube before we even started, and thank you to everyone who, I guess this got received pretty well, but we're going to keep improving. We're going to get better, and for the guy that said the comment that we are terrible, thank you for listening. I agree. I always appreciate an idiot in this world. So
yeah, well, they're going to be there. They're going to be there.
There's one every minute. So, but no, I want to thank him. Thank you to everyone for listening. It means a lot. So thank you so much. And Mike, how are you doing on this beautiful Wednesday in Chicago?
Man, I slept in pretty well. The last one we did, I got like, I don't know, 4 hours of sleep at the best. So this one, I'm a little, I'm not sick this time, and I am also well rested. So I'm feeling great, man. Wednesday is like one of my days off. So Wednesday is a happy day for Mike Finch.
Not a bad deal. Not a bad deal. I'm glad to hear you look a little more refreshed. You didn't look bad though the other day. You don't give yourself enough credit there.
I was coughing. I coughed like 10 times. And half of the time I wanted to cough, but I was didn't have any water with me. It was rough, man.
You look pretty good. I thought you did well for what happened. But we got a lot to talk about today. We'll get right into it. We did a Bellator podcast. We'll actually start with Bellator because there was some big news and the rating. You called this, Mike. I'm not always one to be right. I can admit when I was wrong, but you said leading up to the show, this isn't going to be a good rating.
Right. Well, I was looking at the response that was coming from the MMA community. I don't think that it was properly promoted as far as the websites are concerned. I usually see mixed martial arts websites. You know, they ran with Strikeforce a little more. I think they gave a little more coverage to like when Tito first came to Bellator, when Rampage first came to Bellator, and I didn't see that same level of coverage for this Dynamite card. And I would say that this Dynamite card was more spectacular than, any of the Strikeforce, or I mean, maybe Fedor Henderson's pretty cool, but the majority of the Bellator and Strikeforce cards, and it just didn't end up getting the kind of attention it deserved. The guys who I was telling, it's a one-night tournament. Like, Phil Davis is going to fight Emmanuel Newton, and then he's going to fight again later that night, and people didn't even know that, who were really, really big fans who I was talking about, guys who keep up, with all of the MMA websites and everything that's going on. They didn't even know. So if they don't know, then what about the average fan? You know what I mean? I don't think that. I think that they certainly promoted it well within Viacom, within, on television and whatnot. But that's not enough. I think that the MMA community could have got behind it a little more. And, of course it was a good card, but I expected way less than 3 million. I know you were saying that their goal was probably 3 million. I don't know what the actual numbers are. I'm actually interested to hear what you say, but I was thinking, way less than a Conor McGregor fight. You know what I mean?
The ratings averaged 800,000 viewers between 9 p.m. Eastern and 12:42 a.m. Eastern. The show did about 11,000. I haven't been able to get an exact figure yet. I'm waiting to hear back from the California State Athletic Commission. Way down from the average of the Kimbo Slice. And actually, before we even get to that, the peak rating, and this is very interesting. The peak viewership was for the first fight of the card. 930,000 viewers. You have a great peak right there. Okay, that's your start out number.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really good. Now the number is going to go up throughout the show. The average will get to where it got for the Kimbo and Ken Shamrock show, which it averaged 1.58 million viewers, and it peaked at 2.1 million viewers for the Kimbo Ken Shamrock main event. So
everybody saw the Kimbo Ken Shamrock fight and was like, I'm just not watching Bellator anymore. Maybe they just tapped out after that one. Because
I don't know. The rating pattern was just really weird. Because then you went to the next fight, Emmanuel Newton, and you were talking about Phil Davis, 860,000 viewers. And then it kind of just plateaued after that.
Mm-hmm.
The Kerry Melendez Hadley Griffith fight, 848,000. You had the Paul Daly Fernando Gonzalez fight. That was in 2 segments. So that was 835,000, and then the next 15-minute block was 870,000. So a little bit of an uptick. People were interested in the Paul Daly fight, and then I hate saying the word plummet, but it plummeted under 800,000, 792, 780 for the Josh Thompson, Mike Bronzella's fight.
That's a plummet. I mean, as a business, you know, they're very discouraged to hear that, I'm sure, and it's unfortunate because they were good fights. You know what I mean? It wasn't your usual Phil Davis fight. It wasn't even your usual King Mo Lawal fight. I think all the fights were really good fights. So it's unfortunate that isn't going to make a more economic impact now, because half the people they thought were going to be there, more than half the people they thought were going to be there, were not.
No, and you know, and the numbers, Mike, got worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is scary.
You know, then the light heavyweight final did 690,000, the lowest quarter hour of the entire show, and that was a fight you were really hoping for, and was really going to get. Okay, I think a lot of people turned off because of Lawal not being on. If you look at, he was the highest throughout the show, the highest rating for the show, and then everything after that plateaued. So it seemed like there was some interest in the show. There was interest in him, and then for the Tito McGeary fight, started out at 711,000, and then the peak for the main event from 12:30 a.m. to 12:42 Eastern did 807,000 viewers. That is a vast disappointment. And Viacom, Spike, Bellator have to be very upset with this rating, because they put a lot of money into this card. Tito Ortiz made a reported $300,000. Phil Davis made $130,000 for 2 fights during the evening, and you know, his first fight with Bonner, 1.2 million average, and it peaked at 1.8 million. Yeah. Something was there, and like you said, and what you said, a lot of people have been complaining about. Hey, this wasn't promoted enough. You know, I tried to get an interview with Tito Ortiz and Scott Coker, and they didn't make them available.
Interesting. So it's partially on their part why the MMA websites weren't featuring their content and pre-fight hype.
Exactly. The only things Tito really did was during fight week. And that's good and dandy, but if you don't do interviews, a lot of those articles will come out the week of the fight. You get more buzz for the fight. I looked at the sporting news numbers. From what I've been told, not very good. You know, which is surprising. And even my editor was like, it's like, you know, I'm not feeling, and he said the same thing you did to me. We were talking about it like last Thursday or Friday. He's like, I'm not feeling the buzz either. It's not a lot there. And, you know, I didn't think they hyped McGeary enough. I thought they could have did a little more with the tournament. You know, I just thought the way they were promoting, which I thought was good. I see TV spots on the radio, thinking, okay, you know, this is going to work. But the MMA community is bigger than apparently people want to give it credit for. And I think that shows here with the rating.
Absolutely. No, it really does. And it catches like wildfire, you know. The more promotion you have, especially, I mean, the internet, I would say, would be the #1 tool at this point. Television, radio coming afterwards, you know. And with all this news of there being a lack of viewers, it's not that I'm not sad about that. You know what I mean? I really do think it would be healthy for there to be other legitimate competitors with the UFC, and Bellator is one of those, is the primary one at this point. So it's unfortunate that their efforts aren't being seen. Now, hopefully there could still be a prosperous future. I think the Phil Davis, Liam McGeary fight's a very cool fight. But again, it's hard to sell that to the casual fans, and also the people who are just coming into the sport, who are just now watching it since it's been on Fox, or, you know, since they've been exposed to it more. So I'm rooting for Bellator is what I'm trying to say. I'm not ripping on Bellator, but I expected this, you know, and it's tough for them as a business. You know, we've seen Affliction go down, we've seen Pride get bought out. We've seen Strikeforce get bought out. You know, when's it going to end? You
know, I think it was just pushing. If you're building up Tito's a draw, okay. But you got to build up the opponent. Where's the backstory? You know, and McGeary's not and he did some good interviews. I talked to Liam, a very good interview. First time I ever talked to him, I came away very impressed. Mm-hmm. He has a good story. They didn't sell his story enough. You didn't sell the story. You don't always have to have animosity, but it does help. You mean like I want to smash Tito Ortiz. You could have done some stuff. You could have. There was no special like we've seen with him and Bonner and Kimbo and Shamrock. I wanted to see more of that because I think that the promotion of that really helped. It helped.
I agree. I don't like the WWE style promotion though. I don't know about you. I know you watch a little more wrestling than I do.
It helps. It helps.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it helps.
Mm-hmm.
People want to see a story. Why does A hate B? Why there has to be a grudge? It seems like it's hard for name value, especially in Bellator right now. There's not a lot of name value. The UFC, you got Ronda, you got Conor McGregor, you got John Jones, you got some guys that can sell.
You got John Jones?
What's that?
I said, do they got John Jones?
Well, it's looking like it. We can talk about that too. I forgot all about John Jones.
Hey, GSP's gone. John Jones is gone. Chael Sonnen's out. I mean, the UFC also has, their problems. But what they are doing right is, you're right, they promote their stars the right way. They're promoting Ronda the right way, and she's transcending the sport through so many avenues, so many magazines, newspapers, publications. She's getting interviewed on E Entertainment would never cover a John Jones fight. You know what I mean? It's new media, and I do think that they had the opportunity probably to do that with this one night tournament. And yeah, it's unfortunate to see they didn't capitalize on it. They have a star in Liam McGeary rising. I think that Phil Davis looked better than he ever has in his career. Can they promote him? I don't think the UFC felt like they could, and I feel like that's why he's over there.
It's a shame because I thought this was going to come off really well. I thought the show, the bells and the whistles came off fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's stuck between, okay, now they know what people want to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I personally don't like the WWE, TNA, any sort of fake hype. For me, I like a true story. You know what I mean? I agree with you that they want to tell a story, and you have to tell a story. It's not that they want to. You have to get the people invested in the fight. Why are these two people fighting? What's at stake? You know what I mean? And I think they could have. I think you could sell that story with every fight without doing the fake style hype. And yes, they didn't do it this time, but I don't think they eclipsed nearly what they could have with true hype. A lot of people thought Tito Ortiz was going to retire after this fight. It's the first time in a long time at the top of the game. You've got guys doing a one-night tournament. It was really cool. Too bad nobody knew about it.
Where do they go now? That's the question. Now, what's the next? You can go Liam McGeary. You can go and Phil Davis. You got the New Year's Eve show with Fedor at the end of the year. I think Bellator said there's going to be Bellator guys on this card. So it's just a matter of, okay, who are they going to put on the card?
Mm-hmm.
But the question is, what do you do? You have to stack the show. That Fedor Emelianenko is not going to sell the show by himself. It's not going to happen unless you put him in there with like a Tito Ortiz or you put him in with somebody else. I don't think the show should be taking place in Japan. I know why they're doing it. I get the nostalgia factor. Saka Kabara, that he feels he's got enough to where he could do it in Japan and get the free TV. The people will watch. They'll sell out. I don't even know where they're going to hold it at. That will be interesting too to find out in the next few weeks here. But I don't know. I don't know what Bellator does. Unless you put him with like a Tito.
I don't necessarily like the Tito fight, but I like the Tito fight better than a lot of the other options. You know what I mean? What are you going to do? Give him a young Alexander Volkov, or you know what I mean? There's not a lot of fights that make sense for Fedor outside of the UFC. To be honest, so it's an interesting move on everyone's part. Go ahead, Steve.
I just don't know what they do.
Yeah, I don't think they do either. I think that they're trying to figure that out. Scott Coker is a good matchmaker. He does have good ideas. I think the one night tournament is a good idea. I hope that what they what they don't take from this is that the one-night tournament is not a success. I don't think that's the case. You know what I mean? I think people like that, even though, of course, we saw King Mo drop out of the Phil Davis fight, which would have been cool. But I think people like the tournaments. I think people like having big fights as well, you know, like a Fedor fight and stuff like that. But here's a little off-roading question I want to ask you, because my friend asked me the other day, and I found it very interesting just because how late it is in Fedor's career. What shell of his former self is Fedor currently? Obviously, we're tuning in because it's his name, and this is the way he really pointed this out to me. Is he said, who would win in a fight, Robbie Lawler or Fedor? If that was the fight on the New Year's card, who wins?
Fedor, all day.
Fedor. See, I think that who wins, Chris Weidman or Fedor? Chris Weidman first round. Robbie Lawler, I think, would also beat up Fedor. I think Fedor is way beyond his prime now. You know what I mean? I think he's so far beyond his prime that he shouldn't be fighting. And it's another, you know, it's another Chuck Liddell case. It's another Dan Henderson case. It's another case of a guy who is sticking around too long. Is it for money? Is it to help you know, promotions outside of Bellator? Probably a combination, you know, including that he wants to fight. He does look in shape, but I don't think we're seeing a world champion Fedor. You know, I think we're seeing a guy who's there for his name value.
I think the first fight he's not going to look good. I think this is just get the rust off. It's 3 years. 3 years is a long time. Period. I don't care if anyone says 3 years, whether anyone wants to admit it or not. It is a long time.
Yes,
that's what I think. Give it now. I'm hearing different. Like, I had it confirmed, and now you still got people going on. Maybe this is only a 1-fight deal. From when I'm told, it's still a 2-fight deal. So I've been getting a lot of questions about that. But that's for here and there. But I don't know. I really don't.
What I'm trying to say is you can't give him, you know, a lot of these young heavyweights. I don't think he wins these fights. I think that he belongs in the cage, you know, with somebody his age, you know, a Tito, I guess, or something. But does anybody really want to see Tito blast doubling Fedor and trying to hold him down? You know, I don't know what makes sense. I love Fedor Emelianenko. I was a really big Pride fan. I actually used to be a Tim Sylvia fan, and I always had to defend Tim Sylvia against Fedor. Like, no, Fedor wouldn't mow him down. Of course, Fedor mowed him down eventually when they fought. But I think that the Fedor we used to know is in the past. Tears of sadness. I know he's gone. We can't bring him back. So if he loses a fight, you know, it's just going to be a sad face, you know, from me. That's a legend of the sport, and he should be at home with his chickens and his whatever he's got going on in Russia. I don't know if you've seen his old school training videos and where he used to live. At least he should be doing that. He should be teaching seminars. You know, I think that it will help this organization to have Fedor's face on there. But by having him on there, Steve, I think they need to stack that card. They need to put the Liam McGeary, Phil Davis fight on that card. They need to really try to get people talking about Bellator MMA.
Both guys want to be on that card. So I'm down for that idea right there off the bat. And then, you know, I get what everyone's saying. Is you're not the first person that said this to me, and you're not going to be the last. And people are not happy about the idea. I've seen a lot of that after our podcast, seeing it before we even started the podcast on Sunday. And he is a legend. He is the greatest heavyweight of all time. And now with this thing with Anderson Silva, he's back to where I thought he was to begin with, the greatest fighter of all time. Because if you look at it, and that's for another conversation for another day, we can get more close to that when that fight happens on New Year's Eve. But that stakes that claim. He's clean. He's never failed a drug test. So as we know, he hasn't failed one yet.
And two of the guys he lost to in the later part of his career, they They did. Dan Henderson was on testosterone replacement therapy. Of course, he's no longer at the levels he was, or I don't know if he's on it at all. And Bigfoot Silva, of course, was on TRT. So I know from Hector Quintero of Cage Fanatic, he told me that when he was talking to Fedor and he asked him a question about testosterone replacement therapy and Dan Henderson, Fedor said he had no idea that Dan Henderson was on testosterone replacement therapy, and then it looked like it was really troubling him, like he was upset about it. Maybe I wasn't supposed to say that, but there's some good inside information for you guys.
Now, you need to stop being nice. This is a podcast. You need to not always be nice, Mike Finch. Yeah, you got me mad. I don't like that. We don't play by the rules around here. At least I know I do.
I got you. Hey, I let the inside information spill. I didn't say, oh, I can't say anything. I told you what went down. I'm keeping it real. Keeping it 100.
Now, he's the greatest of all time. You cannot convince me otherwise that he's not. You look at who he faced in that time. Yeah, you can say, oh, you faced Hung Man Choi, and okay, he faced Hung Man Choi. Okay, who has not faced a scrub in their lifetime? Every fighter's faced a questionable opponent or two here and there. Let's just be realistic. But if you look at who this guy's faced, yeah, you look at the 2 of the 3 guys he lost to. Bigfoot, Henderson, TRT, they haven't been the same since. Fabricio Verdum, we should have saw this coming. He's the UFC heavyweight champion.
Yeah, I mean, and the Fabricio fight, it's not like he was looking bad in that fight. He just dove head first into a triangle like he was diving into the deep end of a pool. But that's the way that Fedor throws. He comes over the top when somebody's on their back. If you remember Fedor fighting Nogueira, or many examples where Fedor's got the ankles and he's flying over the top, and he takes risks. And for the longest time, he was the greatest heavyweight. Yeah. As far as the greatest of all time, it's tough because I think that Anderson more consistently fought some of the top guys because, of course, in Pride, you had the freak show fights just because there weren't always, the biggest fights available to him. And Fedor never fought Randy Couture and never fought a couple of the guys that, were at the top of the game. Brock Lesnar was the UFC heavyweight champion. Fedor never came over and proved that. Now, if you look at today's heavyweight division, I think the skill level of Fabricio Verdum in 2015, the skill level of Cain Velasquez, the skill level of Stipe Miocic is higher. I think it's much higher than any fighter that Fedor faced, and I think it's potentially even exceeding any skill level that Fedor ever reached. I don't know how you feel about that. A prime Fedor with today's Fabricio, Cain, and Stipe, greatest of all time, you could call him, but how would he do against the modern heavyweights?
I think he beats the only one I don't think he beats is Cain Velasquez.
Bad matchup for him, right?
It's just the matchup is just isn't a good matchup for him whatsoever. But if you look at the guys, the prime of MMA heavyweights isn't now. There's just too many guys are older. There's not many young crop of heavyweights. You got Miocic, Stefan Struve keeps bouncing in and out of the heavyweight ranks. You just look at the guys he beat. He beat Nogueira when Nogueira was the best heavyweight ever, and look at Nogueira became a heavyweight champion. Mark Coleman, when Mark Coleman was still a relevant fighter and he was a good fighter. Heath Herring was always a solid veteran. He great fights at Mirko Cro Cop. He beat Tim Sylvia coming right out of the UFC, beat him in a big fight. Arlovsky was still being Arlovsky at that time. So the guys he beat, there's no doubt in my mind. Mark Hunt, look what happened to Mark Hunt. Mark Hunt gets out of Pride, and Mark Hunt's a monster.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Hunt shows he fought for the heavyweight championship of the world, won the first round against Fabricio Verdum before he lost that fight. So Mark Hunt, just look at the guys he's faced, the guys he's beaten. And who knows if Anderson Silva, how long was Anderson on steroids? We don't know. It was the first time he was ever randomly drug tested, and bam, he fails.
Now, the more I talk to professional fighters, the more that they say that in Brazil, it's more common for people to take performance-enhancing drugs that might not be deemed legal. That sucks. But with the Fedor thing, all those names you mentioned, those guys were in their prime, maybe except for Mark Hunt. I do think Mark Hunt got a lot better. If you look at his wrestling, his stand-ups, his clinch breaking, I really think the best Mark Hunt is the older Mark Hunt. But with a couple other guys, yeah, that was, you know, the best Crow Cop. That was the best Mark Coleman. Were they on the juice? I don't know, you know. But I think that the skill level of today's heavyweights does not compare to them. I don't think that a prime Nogueira, a prime Crow Cop, a prime Mark Coleman can mess with Stipe Miocic, Junior Dos Santos, today's Fabricio Verdum, Cain Velasquez. I don't. I think that the amount of fighters competing in mixed martial arts is tenfold today. And so when you have a wider base, the guys at the top of the mountain are just better. That's just how it works. You know what I mean? It's you know, been proven over and over in sports. If you look at, you know, why doesn't the United States win in rugby, right? Because were you playing rugby when you were a kid? I wasn't playing rugby. I was tossing a football. You know what I mean? I was playing American football. I was playing baseball, right? And so if all the kids are trying to play basketball, baseball, and American football, we're not going to have a lot of great rugby players coming from the United States because there's only, you know, 10,000 instead of, you know, millions. So it's the same thing with mixed martial arts. Back then, I don't think there were nearly as many guys trying to be the champion of the world in fighting. And Fedor was significantly better than those other guys and should go down as one of the greatest fighters to ever live in any sport. But I don't think his skill level is, and especially the opponents that you were naming, is comparable to today's top 5 in the UFC. And by the way, the top 5 is essentially what there is. The bottom 5 after that, I think, is right in the same ballpark. The bottom 5 after that, you know, you start losing talent pretty quick in the heavyweight division.
You're saying the top 5 pound for pound fighters, or are you saying top 5?
I was sticking to heavyweights. Because, like, if you look through the pound for pound, yeah, it's deep. You know, the top 100 MMA fighters in the world are some badass dudes. You know, I don't think you could have always accredited them quite as highly if we went back 5 years, especially 10 years. You know what I mean? I really think that the amount of guys who are trying to be the UFC heavyweight champion, the amount of guys who are trying to be the best fighter in the world has never been higher. And we'll say that again in another 10 years. I don't think that it was possible to see a Conor McGregor 10 years ago. I don't think it was possible to see, you know, name all the new styles and all the awesome martial arts techniques that we see nowadays. We didn't even know a lot of that was possible. I remember when I was a kid, Steve, I was training Muay Thai, wrestling, and jiu-jitsu because that's what people said worked. You know, train your straight Muay Thai, wrestle so you can decide where the fight takes place, and then your jiu-jitsu for the ground. Nowadays, it's not like that at all. People are using Taekwondo techniques, capoeira techniques, karate techniques, judo techniques, and catch wrestling techniques. We're about to talk about the man himself, Josh Barnett. So I think that the martial arts game has evolved, and it's evolved past what Fedor was representing back in the day in Pride, when he was beating a lot of guys who were on performance-enhancing drugs, and when he was the king. Some people accuse Fedor of being on performance-enhancing drugs. I personally am going to have to say that I don't think so. And, you know, he was beating those guys fair and square.
It's more amazing if those guys were all on steroids and he beat them.
I mean, yeah.
That's a testament to him and how great he is. And I agree with a lot of what you're saying. And, you know, it's a different era. And, you know, I just looked at the rankings really quickly while you were talking. And you got Verdum as a champion, of course. But then you got King, JDS, Miocic, Arlovsky, Brown. He rolls through 3 through 5.
I say Fedor. You're talking about a prime Fedor.
I'm talking Fedor right now, I think, beats Arlovsky. He's already beaten him. I don't think that fight really changes any. Arlovsky's who Arlovsky is. Yes, he's going to Greg Jackson. But if you look at that fight against Frank Mir, he got tagged a couple times. He didn't take those shots very well at all. And that's Frank Mir. Frank Mir, yeah, he's got some heavy hands. But Frank Mir doesn't hit like Travis Brown. Travis Brown, that was a rock'em sock'em robots. And look at what's happened to Travis Brown recently. He got a fluke win over Bigfoot Silva. He crushed Overeem, and Overeem still, I think, was really trying to find his footing. So I think he rolls through them. I just don't like what I see from Miocic. If Fedor could stuff the takedowns, Miocic doesn't do enough on the feet for me. And yeah, he took down Mark Hunt, but you can take down Mark Hunt. Look at the war he had with Junior Dos Santos. I think the best out of both of those guys, I think, is done. You just look at the war that fight was in general, and Junior Dos Santos hasn't even fought yet. Who knows if he'll make it to the fight with Alistair Overeem? I think Alistair Overeem wins that fight against Junior Dos Santos just for the war and all the wars with Kane. So you just look at the career of Dos Santos. It's like, I think the best of Junior Dos Santos is behind him. I think he loses to Kane, and I think he even loses to Verdum. I really do. I just don't think his best chance to beat Verdum was in Strikeforce 2010. I remember watching that fight in the Las Vegas airport, and I literally threw my computer and I almost dropped it on him. It was ridiculous. It was that I was just like, holy shit. I just like, oh shit, I threw it and I caught it, and I'm like, oh, thank God.
Okay, back to comparing Fedor to these guys. That's just showing the difference that we have on where we think Fedor is. Obviously you don't think Robbie Lawler is going to beat Fedor if you think that Andrei Arlovski is not. So
no.
For me personally, I think Andre is going to tear Fedor's head off, and it's not based on what happened on the last fight, because at the last fight, Fedor still had his timing. Fedor was still Fedor. He was the undefeated heavyweight champion of the world, and he's, I think, way far gone from that. The way his timing has looked, the way he's looked as an athlete in his last few fights, I don't think is comparable to old Fedor. So the way Andre's looked as an athlete is better. I think since going to Jackson's, Andre has learned some new techniques. Mike Winkeljohn always tells the fighters to look down the gun, and the way that I've seen Andre's striking sort of evolve, and the way he's able to rush in and land that straight right hand, land his combinations, land those back fists that are really, really, really effective. I think he knocks Fedor out.
Wow.
I think all those fighters knock Fedor out. I think Travis Brown knocks Fedor out. I think Stipe Miocic can knock Fedor out. So I think Stipe probably Mark Hunt Fedor, take him down and give him some bows. I actually thought it was pretty interesting what you were saying about Stipe. You don't like Stipe's striking, even though he was so competitive with the greatest striker we've known in MMA so far, Junior Dos Santos. I think Stipe is one of the best strikers in the world.
It's easy to stand and throw when you have two guys that aren't going to the ground. You stand right in the middle of the top pocket, it'll make me and you look good.
No, I don't think it's easy to throw with Junior Dos Santos. I do not think it's easy to stand in front of Junior Dos Santos. You could ask all of Junior's opponents. I think they would all say that it's not easy to stand in front of Junior Dos Santos.
I just mean the fact that you're standing there. You should land some punches if you're standing right in front of somebody.
He was landing shots. That was a very competitive fight, Steve. Very, very competitive fight between Junior Dos Santos and Stipe Miocic. Very close fight.
We kind of went off the rails on that one. And that's what happens on Fight Game Podcast.
Hey, we're having fun, man. Hey, we're exploring our actual thoughts, actual ideas, and I think that's important. And I'm really interested to see now how Fedor looks. And if he loses, I'll come right back on here and make fun of you.
All right, then let's get to UFC Fight Night 75 taking place on Saturday night from the legendary Saitama Super Arena in Saitama, Japan. The main event, Roy Nelson against Josh Barnett, and then the co-main event, Uriah Hall against Gegard Mousasi. And the preliminary card starts at 8 Eastern on Fox Sports 2. So if you don't have Fox Sports 2, make sure you subscribe to that right now, and Fox Sports 1 at 10 Eastern. First time back to Japan this year, and I'm looking forward to the show. Just alone, I like the co-main. I like the main event. What do you make of the headliner and then the co-main event of Uriah Hall and Gegard Mousasi?
I think that Gegard Mousasi is one of those guys who's at the top of the game and who's had, only losses to those guys who are right there at the top. I mean, Jacare Souza, I could not be more of a fan of Jacare Souza. So Gegard Mousasi is a better boxer than Uriah Hall. Gegard Mousasi is a way better grappler than Uriah Hall. So if they choose to strike, I think that Uriah's got, a legitimate shot of landing some good kicks, moving around and keeping it competitive. I still see Gegard probably outboxing him, and if Gegard can keep slapping that flick jab he likes to throw and keeping everything coming off of that, you know, I think he can control the striking. It is a relatively close and competitive fight the way I see it on the feet. On the ground, in the clinch, I think it's completely a Gegard Mousasi. I don't think Uriah Hall can stop the jiu-jitsu and stop the overall grappling game of Gegard Mousasi. I'm going to go ahead and say that Gegard decides to take him down after he takes a couple hard body kicks or something. Take him down. As soon as he gets on top of him, I think that it's a death sentence for Uriah Hall. I'm going to say Gegard Mousasi, first round rear naked choke.
Woo!
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I mean, I haven't seen it from Uriah Hall. I see him getting tapped out by Ronda Rousey. What am I supposed to think, man?
No, I think Gegard wins this fight. You know, Uriah Hall stepping on late notice for Ryan Sarino, who suffered an injury, and I give Uriah Hall credit. He's stepping in short notice fight against one of the best in the world. And it's amazing. In Gegard Mousasi's 7 career UFC fights, he's been either in the co-main or the main event. So that is a testament to his drawing power and, you know, of how good of a fighter he really is. Because I loved him at light heavyweight. I loved him in Dream. Loved him in Pride. You know, now he's in Strikeforce. Now he's in the UFC. And I think Uriah Hall's in, like you said, I think Uriah Hall's in over his head here. I don't see a way. The only way Uriah Hall wins is by some flashy knockout. I think it's the only way Uriah Hall wins this fight. There's no other way he does. I haven't seen it. If someone can tell me how Uriah Hall wins another way than that, then please show me.
Kicking and moving. I mean, maybe kicking and moving, maybe keeping this at a distance. But you know who else fights damn well at a distance is Gegard Mousasi. So I'm right there with you. I see Gegard closing this out with his jiu-jitsu.
37-5-2, and he's only 30.
So it's some miles. That's some miles. But I really think that he is the best he's ever been. You know, I truly believe that Gegard Mousasi is at the top of his game right now. Even though you could argue that the best Gegard Mousasi we saw was in Strikeforce, I would say today's Gegard Mousasi is going to continually stay in the top 5. I'm not actually sure what he's ranked right now, but he should move right back up into that top 5.
He is ranked, and I have it right here in front of me. He is ranked number 6 in the middleweight division.
Well,
behind
one notch. They're messing up. One more notch. It's a stacked division. I mean, middleweight, I would argue, I used to argue that it was 155. I would argue middleweight is the most stacked division in the UFC.
You could make a valid point for that. You got Weidman, Rockhold, Jacare, Romero, Machida. You got Bisping. You got Gegard. You got Tim Kennedy, who I don't know what's going on with Tim Kennedy right now. I can never get a straight answer out of him. And then then you got some of the older guys, you know, like a Robert Whitaker, a Derek Brunson, who I really like. Got the veteran in Tim Boach, Dan Henderson, Dalloway, Lades. I think this is about I think this division's 8 deep. Unless, you know, Whitaker beats Bisping coming up in November, then, you know, I'll say 7 or 8. I'll say 9 deep, because I still think Bisping wins, get Bisping another fight. I think Bisping's viable, and I think you can make a case for him fighting for the belt just based on longevity and his drawing power. But back to Mousasi, but it's just amazing. Out of 37 wins, 31 of them have been by stoppage. That's insane. That's a high finishing rate and a high finishing percentage. And you look at that and you're like, holy Christ, this guy can fight. He's one of the best in the world. He's on a 2-fight win. He's like, he beat Dan Henderson and Costa Philippou. But you know what? He finished Henderson, regardless of what you want to think about the stoppage. And then he dominated Philippou from start to finish.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Gegard's at the top of his game. And the way that I look at how stacked the division is I'm thinking about the guys who can legitimately fight for a title shot. I don't think Michael Bisping is going to be in that talk anytime soon. But I do think Yoel Romero is right there. I think Jacare Souza is right there. Luke Rockhold obviously was just given the shot. Lyoto Machida, of course, everybody wants to see him and Chris Weidman again. So if he can get a couple wins, he's right there. That's the way I sort of look at it.
Wait a minute. No one wants to see Lyoto Machida fight for the title.
Nobody wants to see Lyoto and Chris Weidman again. I beg to differ.
He's on a losing streak. He is on a losing
right now. I'm not saying right now. Think realistically. Okay, Luke Rockhold, Chris Weidman's able to beat Luke Rockhold. Clearly, Machida wouldn't be up next. You got Jacare Souza fighting Yoel Romero. Obviously, the winner of that fight gets it. But 1 year from now, when the fight might be able to happen, if Lyoto could, make a little comeback and start looking like the guy he was just a year and a half ago. You know what I mean? That Lyoto Machida and Chris Weidman fight is absolutely the most competitive fight of Chris Weidman's career. The only rounds he's ever lost, and I think that a lot of people would be interested to see Machida back in the cage with Chris Weidman before the end of his career. No?
Not on the way he's looked his last two fights, getting dominated and stopped by stoppage. No. I need to see. Dominating
potentially the greatest fighters in the world. I mean, I think Luke Rockhold would smoke Fedor.
Wow, that's for another conversation. Wow.
I think he would first round Fedor. I think he would make him look like a child. And I'm not saying prime Fedor. I'm saying, Bellator / whatever the coupling is for this New Year's card. Okay. New Year's card Fedor.
Let's get back. Stick to the focus. We're done. Fedor's done. We're done talking about Fedor until we hear an opponent, and then we can go back and we can
more
than likely bash.
Stop ripping on your guy.
I'm not saying this. He's my guy. I'm just saying. Let's just be serious here. A prime Fedor and a Luke Rockhold right now. That is absolutely no contest. None.
See, I don't see it.
None.
I do not.
None. And I like Luke.
So much better.
I love Luke. I love Luke Rockhold. Luke Rockhold is a great interview, and we'll have him on the podcast before his fight coming up in December. But there's no way. And I'll even ask Luke Rockhold that question. I'll make sure I write that down when I talk to him in December.
All right.
Late October.
You ask him. You tell him I sent you.
Okay. And he will tell me that you are stupid.
Dang.
Hey, I'll do the insults here. We could insult each other. It's okay. I just think I don't agree with that statement.
Bigger. He's bigger than Fedor. First off,
he's better looking than Fedor. I will give him that though. He is better looking.
We'll see what happens with Luke and Chris. I have a lot of faith in Luke Rockhold. I think Chris Weidman is a little more proven since the Anderson Silva win, the Lyoto Machida win. Well, you know what? Luke Rockhold dominated Machida a lot worse. But I just think that Luke Rockhold is clearly the best he's ever been. The way he's been ragdolling people, I think if he moved up to 205, he would beat a lot of guys. I think he would surprise a lot of people. I have no confidence that Rumble Johnson could beat Luke Rockhold. I have no confidence that, give me anybody. Andre Arlovsky can beat Luke Rockhold. I really think that those middleweights, the Yoel Romero, Chris Weidman, Jacare Souza, and Luke Rockhold, all those guys in that top four, that's a murderer's row. Those guys are some of the greatest fighters who have ever fought. If you look at their athleticism, their speed, explosiveness, their martial arts are just so complete in the wrestling and the jiu-jitsu and the striking and the cardio and the game planning and their camps. I mean, it doesn't get better in MMA right now than those top middleweights.
Now let's get to the main event. I didn't get my prediction. I do apologize. I think Mousasi, I'm going to say second round stoppage.
Okay. Last one more round than my prediction. I got it. Is it punches or is it a submission?
I think he submits him. I haven't seen enough of Uriah Hall's ground game that really gets me really excited. I've seen Mousasi on the ground, and once he gets you to the ground, you usually don't get up. You look, he wins by submission.
Yep. He's heavy on top.
You can't deny 31 out of 37 wins by stoppage. This fight I'll be shocked if it goes to a decision. 12 of those 37 wins by stoppage. 32% of his wins by stoppage. That's not half bad. Now then the main event, Josh Barnett, Roy Nelson. Josh Barnett returns to the Saitama Super Arena. I'm definitely looking forward to that. A great main event. We haven't seen Josh Barnett. By the time he gets in the cage, I think it's like something like it'll be like 640 days.
I saw his last fight. I was actually there live for him and Travis Brown.
Yes. Not a good showing for Josh, but Josh has been doing a lot since then. He's now doing some pro wrestling commentating for New Japan Pro Wrestling with the legendary Mauro Ranallo on Access TV, doing a great job. I watch it, DVR it every Friday, and I always watch during the week, so he's doing a great job with that. He hasn't been active. Roy Nelson has been active. Yeah, Roy Nelson's 1-4 in his last 5 fights, but you know what you're getting with Roy Nelson. He will stand right in the middle of the pocket, and he will throw bombs. You know what you're getting with Roy in this fight.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think that's the entire fight. I think the entire fight is, can Roy Nelson hit him over the head with an overhand right? Can Josh Barnett get on top of Roy Nelson? If neither of them can do those things, it's going to be a very interesting fight. I think that Josh Barnett is going to win in the clinch if they're in a clinch situation. And I think that Josh Barnett will dominate if he gets on top of Roy Nelson. Do I think that that's going to be easy? No. I mean, it's hard to take Roy down, especially when he's fresh. So it also depends on who brings their cardio to this fight. If they're both canceling each other out a little bit, Josh Barnett stopping the overhand right, and it's a competitive fight. If the cardio is significantly better for one guy than the other, I could see that guy with the better cardio pulling it off. My prediction, I think that Josh Barnett's going to get on top of him. I think that Josh Barnett, he's the Metamoris heavyweight champion. He's a very, very experienced grappler, and I think that he can finish Roy Nelson. Roy Nelson's a black belt, and he has not been submitted. So I want to say that Josh Barnett gets to mount and finishes with a TKO, some elbows.
I like your elbows there.
Thank you.
I'm gonna back away now.
You guys see the scar on my elbow? When I was a kid, I was dirt biking. I was dirt biking, and I was showing off for a girl down the street. I was like maybe 10 years old, and I was doing a wheelie. It was like one of my first wheelies, and I just went right over the top. I went all the way back, and I caught myself on my elbow, and I just skinned all the skin off. So it's like it's pretty damn healed. You can hardly see it anymore. But
you know what you should have did? It said you got beat up by like 5 guys. And I got jumped, man.
5 guys can't take me, son.
They came from behind and they gave me some sharp elbows, and then they grabbed my arm and backed it into the wall. And you should have said, or against the cement, or
yeah. And I started doing they all had to get away. They created distance. I got the heck out of there. That's exactly what happened.
See, you can't say that story now. You just said something in offense.
I'll remember it for next one. I'll remember it for next time.
I could say I broke my foot because I saw a girl. I was 11, and this actually happened. And I saw her. She was really cute. I was mad that she didn't want to come and talk to me, and I kicked a boulder. Broke my foot.
You broke your foot? Your actual...
My left foot.
Not your toe? Okay, no. Wow.
Broke my foot. Being an idiot. Because of a girl. No offense to women, but I was only 11. I didn't know any better.
You should have played soccer or something, man. That's some power.
I played soccer. I played a lot of sports, but I was very mad. This girl did not want to talk to me. And the separate was my parents didn't believe me that my foot was hurt. I'm like, no, I don't want him at school. My foot hurts. And the thing was, it wasn't bruised. It wasn't a bruise at all. I just kept complaining because it really hurt. It was hard to walk. So finally, after a week, they took me to the doctor, and they're like, and that's what they thought. Doctor looked at the x-ray. He's like, oh, you broke your toe. My dad's like, no, it's for his foot. He's like, oh, he broke that too. So I broke it at the same time. So it wasn't fun, but I don't like saying that story because it doesn't make me look tough. You want to be tough, Mike Finch. You got a tough exterior about you.
I was in wrestling practice, and I broke my leg, and I was screaming and swearing, and they took me away on a stretcher. I've been there, man. If you get injured, that's why in MMA, to bring this ridiculous conversation back to MMA, I think in MMA, when guys get hurt, a lot of fans don't have enough respect for that. You know what I mean? When Jose Aldo was just hurt, the amount of like disrespect that these guys get is very interesting because they're not. The reason why they're getting hurt is because they're training so hard. They are going 5 days a week, two times a day, absolutely killing their bodies. And I mean, the limit to which they push themselves is why a lot of times they get injured. And, you got to have respect for people who, I don't know. I've never thought like, oh, you're injured, you're a wuss. I've never made that. I don't know how that connection is made. I don't know whoever started that, but you know, getting injured is a result of, you know, doing what you're supposed to do and training hard. Now, of course, you could train smarter, right? That's what the UFC constantly preaches to the athletes, to not pull a Dominic Cruz and have somebody sparring next to you and they just run into you and blow your knee out. You know what I mean? So you can train smarter. But when guys are getting hurt, I mean, few athletes train as hard as MMA fighters, period.
I could not agree more. I agree with that 100%. And my pick for the main event, this main event is so hard to pick, just like for the reasons you said, just because can Barnett get this fight in the clinch where he can toss Nelson to the ground? That's going to be difficult. Can Roy get close enough to where he can, because he's got the power advantage. Let's not be mistaken here. He does have a power advantage over Josh Barnett, but will he be able to use that power, hit that overhand right hand? I think if Barnett gets us to the ground, I think the fight's over. Yeah, Roy's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but we don't really – I haven't seen Roy Nelson use his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu since Elite XC. That's the last time I see Roy Nelson use it. So that, you know, I wish Roy would use it in the Kimbo Slice fight. But I wish Roy would use that more because I think he could be very effective using it. He just chooses not to use it, which I know it's about style points, but I think maybe Roy Nelson can already fought for the title if he would have employed, I think, a better strategy. And his fight game strategy, I'm not very fond of. And I think Barnett is an assassin, literally, what used to be the babyface assassin. But I'm going with Josh Barnett here. I just don't see – I see Roy getting tired, and I see Josh taking advantage of it. I think Josh Barnett wins by second-round submission.
This is a 5-round fight, so, I mean –
it's not going 5 rounds. If this fight goes 5 rounds, they will need an oxygen tank in between each round.
That's what everybody said about Bigfoot and Mark Hunt. How did that go down? You know, I don't know. I think they're tough. They're 2 tough guys. You know, I think Roy Nelson specifically, very, very good chin, very durable fighter. With Josh Barnett, obviously he got taken out with the Travis Brown elbows, but I think that if he doesn't put his head in there, you know, sitting on that double. I think actually Josh Barnett's best takedown is a trip, Randy Couture style, Randy Couture, Tito Ortiz style, hitting those trips. He's a way taller guy, but he still has a heavy base. He's got big hips and thick legs, and he should be able to really, really handle Roy Nelson, I think, in the clinches. And if that's the case, yeah, he's going to finish him. If that's not the case and he can't take Roy Nelson down, and this does go round after round, and they are striking a lot and they are clinching a lot, I'm not saying this doesn't go 5. I want to say there's, you know, a good 30-40% chance that this goes 5 rounds.
Very interesting. So who wins the fight?
I got Josh Barnett by mounted elbows. But so mounted TKO. Maybe second round, you know, but I think that if Roy cannot get taken down, which is a big if, and this does go 5 rounds, I could definitely see Roy winning the fight as far as doing enough with his hands and staying off of the fence, keeping his back off the fence. That fence has to be electric. He just can't keep his back on that fence, because I know that Josh Barnett is going to be very happy just pressing Roy, knee in that big belly, and absorbing some time off the clock. So my pick, is Josh Barnett by TKO. I'm a fan of both guys, though.
No, I like both guys too, and I'm talking to them later this evening, and I'm really intrigued by what they have to say leading up to this fight. So I think it's a very good one. And what does more viewership? This show coming up on Saturday, or the show we saw on Saturday with Bellator?
I would say this show coming up on Saturday, and it's because of the brand of the UFC. I mean, the UFC it has done that well, you know, with their brand loyalty. I think it's close. You know, obviously the Bellator card was a better card, but just the amount of attention the UFC has just drawn to the organization. So you see every single event that's going to happen. You look forward for each one each weekend, and you look for those UFC events. they've got a lot of people doing that, and I think that's why the card will draw more. Not that the fighters are not that the fights are more spectacular than the Bellator fights, though Gegard Mousasi, Uriah Hall, and Josh Barnett and Roy Nelson are good fights. I think it's that UFC brand loyalty that puts it over the edge.
I agree. I think that the Sean Sarah more, and I think for that reason, just like what you said, people know Barnett and Nelson. The card really, I just have a major problem with the UFC not promoting better. If this card, I'm not saying you got to promote every show. I think you should promote every show as the biggest show of all time. Give me a reason of why to watch. Oh, UFC Fight Night, Barnett versus Nelson. Okay, why do I want to watch?
Right.
Some highlights. Give me a couple commercials. Maybe give me a commercial or two on Big Fox on Sunday. Give me a reason of why to watch. And I think that's the problem with the UFC. They rely too much on the brand. They started to get more away from that this year, but certain cards like this one where I think the ratings can do very well, they probably won't because of just the marketing factor. But no, I think this card does better. Not much better, but I think it does do better. And we will end with this. It just seemed like every time we want to get rid of Vitor Belfort, out of sight, out of mind. Yeah, he fights on in November, against Dan Henderson, but we've had a good amount of time since his fight with Chris Weidman. We haven't heard nothing about Vitor. Now we hear more about Vitor and a sketchy, and I'm using MMAJunkie.com's quote here, a sketchy drug test that leading up to his fight with John Jones, which showed elevated levels of testosterone. The UFC reportedly, according to Deadspin, accidentally sent a chain to a chain. Fighters, managers, and trainers in the lead up to this fight at UFC 152 against John Jones. The UFC wanted these fighters and the managers and the trainers to immediately get rid of it. Wow. Don't even talk about it. Get rid of it. Delete it now, yesterday, as soon as you saw
it. This is just unfortunate to hear.
This is just a major, and the UFC knew about the situation.
Mm-hmm.
They knew about it.
Yeah, I hate to hear that. As far as Vitor goes, I know that I'm just trying to remember the sort of situation that they were in around that time, and
it was when Henderson out of the fight, and John Jones wouldn't fight Chael Sonnen, so they waited about 6 weeks and they made this fight.
Well, this was at the time where TRT was completely legal as far as staying inside of the limits, correct?
Yes.
This was before TRT was banned from the sport.
That is correct.
So he exceeded his levels then he should have been given the same punishment as Alistair Overeem.
It was red flagged. The levels it was measured at 1,038 nanograms of testosterone per deciliter. A person in Belfort's age range is more likely to be in the 700s. While the result is within the normal range, it was near the high end. So they red flag, but his free testosterone levels were clearly elevated. It was flagged from the LabCorp testing group, and it was labeled in bold as high. So he was right on the cusp of a negative test, but for his age range, he was very high, and that's why it got flagged. And the UFC knew. The UFC didn't test him; they let it go. What if something would have happened? And we'll get into John in a minute, but this is absolutely ridiculous. Why would you hide something like this?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I can't answer that, but
why? This is absolutely ridiculous. John Jones. What if something really bad happened to John Jones? And I know John Jones isn't everybody's favorite person right now, but if I'm John Jones, I'm ticked off. I'm beyond ticked. This is
not fair. That's true. It's not fair. And let's remember, Vitor almost won that fight with that armbar.
Yeah.
that he had on John Jones. When I was in Buffalo Wild Wings, I've told you just before, Steve, I was watching the fight, John Jones fighting Vitor Belfort, and Vitor slapped on an armbar, and I flipped backwards in my chair. I was so excited. I was on the ground in in Buffalo Wild Wings looking like a goon because I thought I was about to see the new UFC light heavyweight champion Vitor Belfort beating John Jones. That was going to be history. Of course, we know John Jones found his way out of that one, and Vitor gassed in that fight, and John won the fight. I think that the UFC a couple times, specifically with the light heavyweight division, now look at it, they've had problems with creating those title fights and getting those title fights to happen. John Jones pulled out of that one fight with Chael Sonnen when Chael Sonnen was given the shot after Dan Henderson was injured, if you remember that. And I want to say this is sort of around that time period. So, to give possible reasons, that might be one they needed to put a title fight on. On the flip side, you can never, ever allow cheating, and you can never, so I want more information from this. I think that it's a very important thing to talk about, and I'm really, really happy that there is more testing in mixed martial arts, because there is nothing more unfair than getting in a fist fight with somebody who is taking drugs that are going to make them essentially superhuman. They're reaching levels with their body, with their testosterone, with their recovery, with their explosive ability that are not possible, without these drugs to help. So yeah, there's nothing in the sport that is more of a serious health and wellness and fairness issue than performance enhancing drugs. I'm really, really glad that they've been attacking them recently, but it's sad to hear that that might not always be the case.
I get very passionate about drug testing. I always have. I always will. I think in all of sports, especially in combat sports, because it is very dangerous. Mm-hmm. You can kill somebody. Or even if you're not on anything, just you hit a person right in the right spot, someone can die. They really can. Mm-hmm. And the fact that you got a guy that used performance enhancing, what do you guys want to say about TRT? It was illegal. At the time, yeah, it was legal in the U.S. But that's for another conversation for a different time. But the fact that a $1 billion company risked one of the best fighters in the world, one of their biggest stars that they've created, you would put him inside the octagon with someone you knew that was cheating. You knew it, you had the documents, and you let it go. It is so hard, and I'm sorry I'm getting upset here, but this is very agitating to me, is the fact that they put their champion at risk for a title fight against a guy you knew that was cheating.
Well, one thing,
absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah,
I'm very ashamed of this company right now. I know some UFC people listen to our first podcast, and they're probably not going to like this one. I don't really care. They endangered John Jones.
Right.
I'm not the biggest, and there's times where John Jones hasn't, and John's always been good to me. I've never had a problem with John Jones. But a lot of people have. He comes off smug, snarky, whatever you want to say. But in this instance, UFC 152, September 2012, he got screwed, man. He got royally screwed. What if he lost his title? What if he submitted to the triangle armbar?
Yeah, it was that close.
Holy Christ, we got a bag of worms.
Yeah, for sure. Well, two things. One, I'm interested to know if John Jones got word of it before the fight.
That's what we don't know. I have reached out to John Jones. I've reached out to his manager. I don't have John changed his number. I have reached out to his manager. I have not heard a response yet. I sent that. I didn't read this story until I messaged you about it. Right when I read it, I messaged you about it yesterday. So that was when I first read it. I sent him a message last night, and I have not gotten a response yet. I probably won't get one because they're probably not going to say anything about it. But it'll be a time and place to ask John that question and see what he thinks. But when he finds out, if he didn't know and knows now, I'm going to take a guess, but John Jones will not be very happy. And neither will his camp, and they have a very valid case to not be very upset with this.
Of course. Well, and the other thing is, I mean, you know, we keep it 100% real here, man. It's me talking to you. How many of us really think that Vitor Belfort is not playing with, you know, performance-enhancing drugs?
He's not playing with house money. You're exactly right.
He is the poster boy for it. He is the poster boy. I mean, look at what he was doing around that time that he got that title shot. I mean, it appeared he was on performance-enhancing drugs. Everybody was saying he was on performance-enhancing drugs. He had previously been popped for performance-enhancing drugs. You know, if the shoe fits, right? So I can't imagine that John Jones didn't take that into consideration like every other guy who's fought Vitor has. You know, like how much crap did Chris Weidman talk directed at Vitor Belfort's you know, performance-enhancing drug abuse, you know, and how much is this Dan Henderson rematch coming up a product of Dan being upset that he fought a, you know, potentially roided out Vitor, and that now today Vitor is off the TRT, off whatnot, and Vitor physically looks a lot different as to where Dan Henderson in his last fight, you know, knocks Tim Boach out pretty quick. I think Dan looked pretty sharp. So I don't think it's a secret that Vitor Belfort, you know, likes to drink the magic water. With this coming out, though, I mean, this is big news, and it should be taken seriously. And you know, it's hard for me to complain about, you know, the UFC's overall drug testing when you look at other companies. The UFC is the front runner. You know, how much drug testing were they doing in Pride? How much drug testing were they doing in Strikeforce? How much drug testing are they doing right now in Bellator? Those are also very, very valuable questions. And, you know, I think right now the UFC is leading the way with drug testing. Were they forced into it?
Oh, exactly. Yes, they were.
I would argue that they were forced into it. But, you know, this should be investigated. And yeah, it's as serious as you say, because it's not baseball. It's not tennis. It's not, you know, me swimming against you. Whoever can do, you know, however many laps faster wins. It's, you know, I'm going to kick you in the head. So it's not something where you could play with steroids, and you know, there's you could feel like, you know, you should feel terrible if you are a mixed martial arts fighter and you are going in there, you know, juiced to the gills like Hector Lombard. It's just not it's not fair, and today in the sport you will get caught.
You will get caught. And yeah, I agree with you with everything you said. You're spot on. I really don't have there's nothing else to say really regarding that. You know, they're the innovator. They're the front runner, but they weren't screaming to the mountaintops to want to do this. Right. You're exactly right on that. You're spot on. They were dealt a hand. They were forced, plain and simple. Because they knew at the end of the day, it's all about money. They could have lost a lot of money with this. You know, and now they're putting their best foot forward regardless of the circumstance. You know, I'm glad they're doing it. I've been the biggest advocate of this because I want a clean sport. Is it 100% of the guys going to be clean and the girls? Absolutely not. We know this. Let's not try to kid ourselves here. There's people out there trying to cheat. Plain and simple. Whether it's in Bellator, UFC, ONE FC, World Series of Fighting.
Whether it's in poker, whether it's in politics.
Everyone cheats. Everyone tries to cheat. Plain and simple.
Yep.
No ifs, ands, or buts about it, but I don't know. I'm really intrigued. I want to hear what John has to say. Very shameful of the UFC because they knew about this. That's so damning. To me, is the fact they knew about it and they did nothing about it. And I think that's absolutely ridiculous. But no, the UFC has not commented on this, by the way. I've reached out. They haven't really. They've said nothing to nobody. You know, and like you said, Vitor was the poster boy for this. And Chris Weidman had every right to be pissed off going into that fight.
Yeah.
Because he didn't know either. He's still pissed off about it.
Yeah.
He still is. But that is it for today. But no, thank you so much to everybody for listening. Mike picks Josh Barnett, and Mike is going with Gegard Mousasi. I am also going with both guys as well, and we both agree both fights will end by stoppage. What round did you say Barnett and Nelson?
Man, I'm going round 2 TKO Josh Barnett. He's gotta block the right hand a couple times. He's gotta get in that clinch, wear that big dude out. Second round, he's gonna hit that trip takedown. After Josh Barnett gets on top of you, you might as well park a semi up there. It's over. I got Josh Barnett by TKO. Second round, Steve.
I'm going second round too. I just think it's always that first round. It's hard to figure out. Could have done in the first round. Yeah, it's the heavyweights, but I agree with that. I think round 2. I think Josh Barnett wins. I think it's either gonna be submission or TKO. It will be by stoppage. It's really hard to predict in something like that, but no.
I'd like to see a head and arm choke. That would be my submission prediction. I think a head and arm choke from side control or mount, jump over.
It's how he defeated Brett Rogers in the heavyweight Grand Prix. Head and arm choke.
Yes, exactly. So put your money right there, Steve. Head and arm choke.
All right, a head and arm choke. Josh Barnett over Roy Nelson on Saturday night from the Saitama Super Arena in Saitama, Japan. Josh Barnett, Roy Nelson in heavyweight action. And then number 6 ranked Gegard Mousasi will take on Uriah Hall. I'm looking forward to that fight as well. And the one and only the Gooch returns, Kyoji Horiguchi against Chico Camus. Horiguchi, the former, he just fought Demetrius Johnson in April, and Chico Camus from Duke Rufus Sports Gym out in beautiful Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The next podcast, I don't know, man, I think maybe I like that Sunday morning idea, Mr. Finch. I thought that came off. I don't know how well you're sleep. I know you're a big party guy.
I'm not.
You're a young, good-looking guy. You know.
Don't sell me as a big party guy before we drop off. I am not a big party guy. I don't even drink, Steve. I don't even.
Wait. You don't drink?
I don't.
Wait a minute here.
Let me take a step back. Whoa. I'll time.
You don't drink?
I'll take a shot. Okay, but I don't like beer, and I don't like. You won't catch me at the bar. Like if I go to a bar, I'm with my buddies, and they all wanted to go, and I don't drink beer. Maybe
So what do you drink at the bar then? If you go to the bar,
right?
What is Mike Finch drinking? Now, you got to say it now. You got to say it now.
I'm either designated driver. Okay. Or I'm going in. I'm going some shots. Just
shots of what?
Whatever they got.
Come on, you gotta have some favorites now.
I like rum. A lot of people don't like rum. I like any kind of rum. I'll take whiskey. I like my friends all drink Fireball. That's their thing.
Fireball's not bad. I've done Fireball. Okay. Now see, I can't do straight shots of rum. I lost a horrible bet at my bachelor party. Of all places, my bachelor party. On shots of rum.
Okay.
I lost, and God, was it freaking awful.
On my birthday, on my 21st birthday, I had 14 shots of rum. I went in, and that's with chasers. I'm not saying that I'm just out here slamming all these. But I tend to like rum more. I think the worst is vodka. A lot of people like to shoot vodka. I think that tastes like gasoline.
I couldn't agree more. I like vodka, but it's hard for me to do a shot. But no. All right, okay. I can hang with you then, Finch. Me and you can, we go to the bar, you at least do a shot. That's cool if you don't drink. Do you do mixed drinks at all?
Whiskey. We'll shoot some whiskey. What'd you say?
Oh, no. I don't do shots of whiskey. No. I like tequila shots. I'm a tequila guy. I do like.
I'll shoot anything. I don't think alcohol tastes good in any form. So if I'm gonna do it, it might as well be this much.
No wonder why you're good looking. You got all your hair. You're in good shape every time I see you. You look in fantastic shape. So I can tell you don't drink the beer. Very good. I'm very proud of you, young man, that you're not drinking beer. I have plenty. I got some Miller Lite in the fridge. I just bought a 28 pack of Sam Adams. I got a barrel of Captain Morgan sitting in my cabinet. I'm good for a while. I don't have to leave the house.
I'll shoot that Captain Morgan with you. I'm down.
Hey, we'll have to set that up, Mike Finch. But no, thank you to everyone for listening. We will be doing a podcast recapping UFC Fight Night in Japan with Barnett versus Nelson. Whatever else is going on in mixed martial arts over the weekend, me and Mike will discuss it. Mike, where can the fans find us? Twitter, YouTube, and all that fun stuff.
Well, everything is Fight Game Podcast. I'm not sure if you messed with the Twitter yet. I know it was like Fight Game Pod.
I can't see. I've been getting some complaints about this. And what I've been telling people, look at John Anik and Kenny Florian's podcast. And I talked to John Anik about it. I sent a couple texts and I'm like, why couldn't you fit yours in? He's like, stinking Twitter. They won't let me do it. I'm like, you know what? They won't let me do it either. So we were both on the same page regarding that. So no. Right now it's Fight Game Pod. They have it at Anik Florian Pod. So I don't feel too bad about having it where it's at. So
we're right there then. So you can check us out on SoundCloud. You guys can check us out on Facebook. I'm at Mike Finch MMA, facebook.com/Mike Finch MMA. And I'm making a WordPress right now. So I'm making my own website. But yeah, if you want to find me on Twitter or YouTube, it's /Finch. That's also my personal Facebook. Mike2Finch. So if you guys want to check out my YouTube channel, I'm going to continually update that. I'm going to start something called the Mike Finch Minute, where I'm doing just a minute YouTube video, and I'll break down a fight. I think the first one is going to be Daniel Cormier and Alexander Gustafsson, which is coming up very soon. So stay tuned, and me and Steve will be doing the Fight Game podcast every week. Hope you like hanging out with us.
I hope you guys too. No, and thank you, Mike, for that. No, we'll be talking. There'll be another podcast we'll do next week, UFC 192. They return to pay-per-view. Like you said, the aforementioned Daniel Cormier and Alexander Gustafsson. We got some cool little things we're going to be releasing here. Nick Diaz's attorney, Lucas Middlebrook. I thought a very good interview. He talked. I remember doing the interview, Mike, and I'm sitting there talking to him on the phone before we start. And I'm like, how much time you got? And he's like, Steve, I got an hour. He's like, I'm like, but I promise it'll be no more than 15, 20 minutes. Interview ended. It was like 45 minutes. I didn't even realize it, but we'll be releasing that podcast as well. Then next week, we got a lot of awesome stuff next week. I don't even know where to start. Ryan Bader, Johnny Hendricks, Rashad Evans, the light heavyweight champion of the world, DC, Daniel Cormier, his opponent, Alexander Gustafsson, talking to him, and also Tyron Woodley. Some of those have already been knocked out. Bader is already done. I talked to Johnny Hendricks this morning. Then the other 4, I think I'm talking, and I talked to Tyron Woodley already too. So, but we'll release those one by one. Maybe we'll include 1 or 2 in the podcast, and then we'll release them as separate podcasts. But we'll see what happens. But maybe we'll include them all in. Who knows? We'll see how froggy we feel. But no, good show this weekend coming up. 10 Eastern, 9 Central, live on UFC Fight Night from Japan, and then the prelims start at 8 Eastern on Fox Sports 2. You have Fox Sports 2, by the way?
I believe so. I believe I do. Yeah.
A lot of people have been complaining, saying they don't. I have it too. I just switched to Xfinity, which I end up loving, but I don't know. I think I have it. I'm going to. Actually, no, I do not have it. I'm just thinking about that now. I have to find out a way to watch it.
Yeah, well, I split my time between 2 places. I stay in an apartment, and then right now this is my parents' house that I hang out at. So
in an apartment. Now, whose apartment are you staying at, Mike Finch?
I split an apartment with my grandpa.
Your grandpa. Okay. I didn't know. Okay. I did not know this.
He can't drive, so I'll get the groceries. You know what I mean? He'll pay for the groceries. So it's nice.
You're a good Samaritan.
Am I? Thank you.
You're a good Samaritan. But no, like Mike said, find us on SoundCloud. Subscribe on SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, Fight Game Podcast, the YouTube channel, the Fight Game Podcast. Find us everywhere. Not YouTube's Twitter at Fight Game Pod. We got to start a Facebook page. That's the next thing we got to get to. We got to get to a Facebook page.
Hey, I'm already on it. I actually, it'll be up today. /Fight Game Podcast. Facebook.com/Fight Game Podcast.
All right. Mike Finch, you're the man, buddy. I'm sorry that I'm so busy that I can't do stuff like that. I'm sorry. But you're kicking ass doing that stuff. So I'm not that technologically savvy. I'm lucky I figured out how to do this, and it seems like now everyone wants to follow what I created. So
that's cool. How it always works, Steve.
But no, I started this thing a couple of years ago on the other site I was on. I'm like, hey, let's do a video podcast. It's hip. It's fresh. It's something different. No one's doing it. Mm-hmm. But now more people are doing it. So we're going to continue this innovation, Mike Finch.
We're killing it, man. It's only our second one. I think we're having fun. The more people we can get coming onto this through all our different avenues. Obviously, you're doing all your journalist stuff. I do commentary for the XFO, so I think we can bring all the tension together. There's nobody more knowledgeable in the Midwest with MMA than us, right? I mean, we're both out of Chicago, and I think we're the 2 best guys to hang out with.
I don't like you tooting my horn like that. You're the guy. I'm just the guy behind the guy.
No. You're the guy, Steve.
Oh, No, my wife says that all the time. I'm not. I'm no one special. I'm just a guy that does some interviews. I do a nice podcast. That's it, though. I write some articles. They're okay. They're not bad.
Hey,
I always find ways to improve. I put it that way. But no, but thank you to everybody so much. We do greatly appreciate it. You can also find me on Twitter at SMuehlhausen MMA. You can find Mike Finch on Twitter at Mike2Finch, the number 2, not 2W0 or TOO. Mike, number 2.
That's right.
So make sure. Now, how are your Twitter followers up? And we'll end with this. Are your Twitter followers up since Sunday?
Yes, I have a couple new Twitter followers. Actually, now that you mentioned that.
See,
Is that what you're saying?
You're getting there now. See, I told you, just baby steps, Finch.
Slowly, I'm on the gas, man. I'm on the gas. I'm only 23, so I got a long way to go.
You're at 165, Mike Finch. You've gained a couple more followers since then. Okay.
I'm working on it. I mean, I just started my Twitter, last year, and I, maybe logged on 20 times. So I got to start pumping my Twitter up a little more.
Let's go today. Pump it up, buddy.
Hey, this will be on there. This will be on my Twitter. Make sure you guys retweet this if you add me. Thank you.
All right, but for Mike Finch. Once again, Mike, thank you so much. We're still growing. We're kicking some ass a little bit. We're taking some names. People are apparently listening that I didn't know were listening, so we greatly appreciate it. YouTube guys are doing great. Keep listening on there, watching there. Listen on SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, subscribe. You'll be the first to know as soon as it's subscribe. Bam, listen, give us your thoughts. Leave any comments we do, negative or positive. That fan that responded, I decided to, okay, thank you for listening. I'm very appreciative of that, and thank you. Keep subscribing on the YouTube channel as well, the Fight Game Podcast. We've got a couple already, which I think is fantastic after only one video. So thank you to everybody for that. For Mike Finch, Steven Muehlhausen, we'll talk to you next time.